We're going to talk with Ralph Rosenberg today with the Iowa Environmental Council about Iowa's water legacy, questions and challenges to lay ahead on that issue. We're also going to talk about Marriott International going confinement-free when it comes to pork and chicken. Chris Peterson with the Iowa Farmers Union will join us for that conversation. And it being Thursday, State Representative Dan Kelly will give us the inside take on what's happening at the State House, specifically the Iowa House.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Ed Fallon here, folks. Gateway Market and Cafe is your locally owned source for specialty groceries. Enjoy chef-crafted, prepared foods, artisan baked goods, organic produce, specialty cheeses, and hand-selected wines and craft beer. Visit the lively cafe for breakfast, lunch, or dinner 7 days a week. Gateway Market is centrally located on the corner of Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway and Woodland Ave. Stop by or visit www.gatewaymarket.com for more details. That's Gateway Market, folks. Good food, great community. Since 1994, Sid's Catering has graced Des Moines area events with quality service and rave reviews. Owner Sid Cohn's culinary career began with a Northeast Iowa vacation home for international clientele. Sid earned a Bachelor of Science in Hotel Restaurant Management and was the assistant clubhouse manager at Des Moines Golf and Country Club. Sid has a passion for fresh, local products and offers a wide range of options, including vegan, gluten-free, and ethnic. Mention the Fallon Forum when you book your breakfast or lunch event and get 10% off. Contact Sid's Catering at 208-2091. That's Sid's Catering at 208-2091. On March 28th, Equal Justice After Hours is Iowa Legal Aid's annual fundraiser that helps provide access to justice for low-income Iowans. The event includes a reception and program at the Temple for the Performing Arts in Des Moines. It also includes remarks by Georgetown University law professor Peter Edelman and the induction of Robert Oberbelly into the Iowa Legal Aid Hall of Fame. Tickets start at $50 and sponsorship opportunities are available. Contact Terry Bennett at tbennett@iowalaw.org. That's tbennett@iowalaw.org.
Times are tough, and most people are just trying to make their cars last a little bit longer. That's why you should know about Sargent's Garage in Des Moines. You can trust Sargent's to make the right diagnosis and give you a fair price. Whether it's a routine oil change or a major repair, Sargent's always does outstanding work. So don't give up on that old car just yet. Call Sargent's Garage at 246-8149. That's 246-8149 for Sargent's Garage.
Ludwig van Beethoven here. I used to be so tired all the time, not from composing and playing, but from moving my piano. But now I feel so much better. I call S&P Piano and they will bring my piano anywhere. They also sell and rent pianos, used ones, new ones. You get the idea.
Call S&P Piano right away at 208-6453. That's 208-6453.
S&P Piano.
I love driving to Newton to see the races.
Me too, but I only have to drive across town.
You live in Newton?
Yep, Newton's got small town charm and it's close to Des Moines. I love the safe, friendly neighborhoods and family-owned businesses. And Newton's wind energy industry is really taking off.
How'd you find your home?
Dan Kelly with First Choice Realty. And Dan helped me find my office too.
Next time, instead of just speeding by, I'll stop in and check out Newton.
Why don't you check out Newton? Call Dan Kelly at 641-521-9260 or Dan Kelly at mchsi.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Brother Trucker kicking us off, folks. Welcome to today's Fallon Forum, broadcasting live from the cultural and culinary crossroads of the continent, which is also a flippin' icebox today. It is colder than you know who out there, and it's also got a biting wind that will take the face off you. I saw a guy, no face. I figured that's what happened to him. Well, I got a guy who's braver than me today, because actually, folks, I must confess, I drove today. I drove today, and part of it is I've got some places to go afterwards. But my guest stud puppy that he is, Ralph Rosenberg, walked here from the east side of Des Moines. Ralph, you look like you're still in one piece.
I am still one piece.
You knows that if it frostbit, it's not showing it right now.
Not yet, no.
So you care not just about water quality. You care about you care about your I don't know how to spin this, but anyway. No. Congratulations on making it across the east side.
Well, it's easy. For those of us who can do it, it's fine.
Good. Well, welcome to the show. Ralph is a former state legislator, was in the House, was in the Senate, came to his senses, gave up both, has been doing a lot of things, worked with with various state agencies for a while.
Yes. And
now you're head of the Iowa Environmental Council.
Right.
A group doing some really good work.
We are. We're doing really good work. We're a statewide nonprofit. We're an alliance of a wide range of diverse organizations. And I urge your listeners just to go to our website to get a sense of all the groups, about over 60 organizations. If I start mentioning them, I'll start leaving them out. But what it shows...
And we'll run out of time.
But what it shows is that I think people in Iowa, and I think a lot of your listeners want to give voice to the concerns about Iowa's water and natural resources. Yeah. And that's what we can do. And our organizations represent about 60,000, 70,000 different voices in Iowa who want to reverse a downward trend in terms of protecting our water.
Of course, our water is frozen solid right now, and so maybe we don't notice, but when it starts thawing, we will notice just how polluted it is. And it is such a problem that the EPA has already gotten involved. And yet it seems like a lot of Iowa's leaders aren't willing to really adopt the kind of strategies that are needed to bring it up to the level where we can call it clean water again.
Right. Iowans want something done regardless of whether EPA gets involved. Iowans want their rivers and streams cleaned up. People that fish, people that paddle, people that swim, people that drink from Iowa's waters want them cleaned up. The EPA involvement that you mentioned, Ed, is putting pressure on Iowa.
Right.
And EPA is involved in several different areas. I mean, it deals with enforcement of animal feeding operations. I mean, there's litigation as well as some, I think, pressure being put on there. And then, Ed, there's the pressure by EPA for Iowa to develop what Iowa State calls a nutrient strategy, which is kind of misleading.
A nutrient strategy?
Nutrient strategy. Which
to managing water quality?
Yeah, nutrient is the term referred to agriculture chemicals. In this case, we're primarily talking about nitrogen and phosphorus. And we're
stuff you really don't want in your water.
You don't want it in our water, and there's a strategy for non-point source, which is primarily from agriculture, and point source, which is those such as coming from our cities or industry.
And point source means, okay, there's a hog confinement. We know that's dumping certain things into the water supply. Okay, or there's a city sewage treatment plant that needs upgrading.
Right.
You can point to the source and say, aha, you're the cause of this particular runoff issue. Non-point would be, spreading anhydrous across an entire 200 acres of farm ground.
Right, it's from a diverse source, but in terms of the impact on water, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Now, what recent studies have shown is the great majority of the source of the causes is from non-point source, from agricultural practices, and the statistics are at least 80% come from non-point source. The cities and industry contribute somewhere around 10%, 15%, depending upon whether nitrogen or phosphorus. They contribute a very small percentage, but EPA has a little stronger regulatory authority over them. Right. They're going to clean up. What Iowans want is their water cleaned up. In a sense, Iowans don't care who's polluting their waters. They want something done, and they're looking to state government to do it. And if state government doesn't do it, EPA is going to put additional pressure on.
Yeah, and they've already put a lot of pressure on.
Right, and they have.
The additional pressure might get to the point where they actually manage our waters for us, which I think would be not only embarrassing, but it would be a real shame. We ought to be able to take care of our own water waste. I think that would be a real shame if it comes to that.
Well, I think Iowans want it cleaned up, and I think in terms of politics, that it's sometimes the pressure of the federal government stepping in may be something that forces people to do it, but. In past years, sometimes there was debate over whether or not our waters were clean, but people now have gone in, they've seen the algae, they go to parks and see the signs that say, no swimming today, the park's being closed, and people want something done. And I think there's an urgency to taking care of our waters. It's not just that Des Moines a few years ago had to build a multi-million-dollar nitrate removal facility. It's people that are leaving the state of Iowa to go trout fishing. It's people that are going out of the state to go paddling. It's things like that are affecting individual Iowans. And so one of the things I'm really glad your show's doing this, because we need to give voice to Iowans, because I think Iowans just need to let elected officials know that we swim, we paddle, we drink Iowa's water, and we want something done. Right now, the state of Iowa has what's called a nutrient strategy, which is kind of misleading.
A nutrient strategy.
I know it's nutrient.
Now, who came up with that one?
Well, that's just the term. Nutrients is sometimes referred to the addition of agricultural chemicals to the land for increased productivity. I understand that, but it's a little misleading because what we're really talking about is the application of agricultural chemicals, in this case, nitrogen, phosphorus.
But does a nutrient strategy also refer to manure? Manure is a nutrient added to the soil as well.
It can, because some of the phosphorus could come from the spills as well, from manure as well. And I think what's happened is the state is relying on a voluntary practices, and I think this is where the controversy lies. And when we have reached out to our members, people have said, we want something than what's been tried and hasn't worked. And what in the past that what we've tried is purely voluntary,
right.
And what the state has said, let's try it again. And the public says, we don't want to wait anymore.
It didn't work. Why try it again?
That's right, Ed.
Folks, we're talking with Ralph Rosenberg. He's with the Iowa Environmental Council. And if you'd like to join the conversation on water quality, 244-0077, 244-0077. Toll free, it's 855-244-0077. And you can email me at fallonforum@gmail.com. Later in the program, we're going to share a clip from Gabrielle Gifford's speech before the U.S. Senate on gun control. And we're going to also talk with Chris Peterson with the Iowa Farmers Union about Marriott International banning confinement pork and chicken. And we're also going to talk with State Representative Dan Kelly about, among other things, the education debate in the Iowa House. So again, feel free to call in if you like, or if you would prefer to email me your comments, that is fine as well. So again, your group tries to work with, you're not partisan. You try to work with people across the political spectrum.
Yes, we do.
And water quality is should not be a partisan issue, but there does seem to be more opposition from Republicans to moving away from this voluntary strategy to something that's more regulatory.
Well, there's some philosophical opposition to using government to solve problems. The thing is that I don't believe the voluntary method has worked to taking care of our waters. And in addition, I think the public wants, whatever happens, is they want accountability. They want goals. They want milestones. They want measurements. How do we know we're doing a better job with whatever strategy we use to clean our waters?
What have we been using for measurements?
Well, we haven't been doing enough. We have some ambient water standards, but we need to do more. And there's nothing in the strategy. One of the things that many environmental groups and citizen groups have been complaining about is, where are the progress? Where's the yardsticks to which even how you can measure whether this strategy is ever going to succeed? But the other part of a voluntary strategy, let's say your listeners say, okay, we don't want government. We don't trust government. Let's have a voluntary strategy. Well, then you're going to need some resources to make it work. Yeah. And
I'll agree that most farmers do the best they can.
Okay.
Most farmers care about water.
Okay.
But, there are bad players out there, and there are folks that are just stuck in a situation where they don't have any option, and they're going to make decisions that are bad for our water quality. And who's going to come in and say, well, hey, this could be done differently. Here's some resources that can help you manage your input into the water more responsibly.
Exactly.
Who's that going to be? It's got to be government.
Exactly. And that's what some of our criticisms are, is that the money is really a drop in the bucket of contaminated water. Secretary Northey, and pursued by Governor Branstad, is recommending about $2 to $6 million. That doesn't work. And in contrast, we're seeing cuts. We're seeing cuts of $1 million for river restoration, several $1 million for lakes. We're eliminating funding for the watershed program. We're eliminating funding for those programs that you would need to have a voluntary system work. Right. There's we still haven't even quantified the benefits. We don't have money to do cost share with farmers for stewardship plans. I think Iowans would say, okay, if a farmer wants to develop a stewardship or conservation plan, maybe we can provide some resources so that farmers can do that stewardship plan. There's nothing there in the budget.
Well, and a lot of the money is being moved from the Department of Natural Resources, and it makes sense to me to fund water quality programs through the Department of Natural Resources, water being a natural resource. But the money is being shifted to the Iowa Department of Ag, which to me, the Department of Ag, does some things quite well, And I mean, on paper at least, it's supposed to address the vast spectrum of agriculture, from big livestock and crop farms to the smaller farms. But we really know in practice what the focus is, and so the shift from DNR to IDOLs is a shift of priorities as well.
That's right, and that's what Iowans, I think, are partly upset about, is that there's no accountability and who's going to watch these. The whole development of the plan was done behind closed doors. As many of the media reported this fall, as we found out that the public had no input, contrary to what people say. The public didn't know about it, and then the public was given 45 days over Thanksgiving and Christmas to give input. Many citizen groups and environmental groups said you need to have an extension on it. But also, you have an agency perhaps like IDOLS that is more leans towards the voluntary, but you need to have someone who's really going to enforce these laws, which may mean not making friends of the entire agriculture community, but making friends of the people who care about our waters.
Well, and friendships in politics, friendships are often sealed with money. Campaign donations or good relations with lobbyists. But I would think that the director of the Department of Natural Resources would be fighting to keep that money under his control.
Well, the departments of heads of agencies are appointed by Governor Branstad, who sets the agenda for state government. So then that's why it behooves citizens of Iowa to put pressure on, because that's the way the system is. It was Governor Branstad who recommended slicing funds for lakes, slicing funds for watersheds, slicing funds for rivers, putting inadequate dollars in for any kind of conservation programs. So it's going to be up to the citizens and environmentalists and legislators to try to put some of that money back into the budget. And right now, the $2 to $6 million is a drop in the bucket.
So what kind of response are you getting from each chamber, from the Iowa House, from the Iowa Senate? How are they responding to Governor Branstad's shift in money and decrease in the overall amount being appropriated?
Well, we're certainly going to Democrats and Republicans. When you turn on a faucet, the water comes out of hot, cold. It doesn't come out of Democrat or Republican faucets.
But sometimes the hot has a little red thing on it.
No,
and the cold has a little blue thing on it.
There's no red and blue.
Blue, okay. Right.
Actually, people are curious about it. I think. Well, here's what I think is that I'm thinking elected officials were frozen out of this whole process. I mean, the state legislators were frozen out, county supervisors, city council, people that care about water and the environment, care about what's going on, and they didn't have an opportunity for input, and they still have minimal input. One of the things we're saying is let's give our elected officials more an opportunity, more to oversee, to set accountability, set goals, like having some ongoing body to oversee all this, because right now there is no accountability.
Well, I mean, again, it's going to take. You're right. It's going to take legislative leadership, but the only other thing that inspires legislative leadership more powerfully than money is citizen involvement. So, the more we can do to encourage people to call, write, have your presence. Be there at the state capitol. Let your presence be known.
Oh, it impacts people. Like, for example, on February 26th, there's going to be a combined lobby day to push for more money for REAP, for funding for the Iowa Water Land Legacy, and for our own environmental council. And I anticipate several hundred people will show up, weather permitting. And I think then their voice, collectively, the voice is going to be heard. But Ed, we are seeing great contributions by people. We have a legislative alert page, and people really are writing letters and phone calling. And that's why I think Democrats and Republican legislators are saying we have to do more than what's on the table right now.
Well, good stuff, Ralph. And if folks want to get in touch with you, learn more about what they can do to help out, where do they go?
You can go to our website. You can Google Iowa Environmental Council or www.iaenvironment. Or you can also just email me, rosenberg@iaenvironment.org.
rosenberg@iaenvironment.org. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And safe trip back to the East Village and safe trip back to Ames tonight. And as a resident of Ames, too, you'll have a chance to hear this program.
Right.
Not this particular edition, but the Fallon Forum once a week on KHOI, which we're very excited about being on the radio in Ames.
I was just on a couple weeks ago talking about the creation of the Leopold Center, and I think it's really important for the public to hear these diverse voices, and shows like this, stations like KHOI really do it, because I think the public are really hungry to learn more, and also hungry to figure out what we can do about making our voices heard.
Right. Thanks, Ralph.
Thanks, Ed.
Before we welcome State Representative Dan Kelly to the show, and before we talk a little bit about Gabrielle Giffords and her testimony before the U.S. Senate yesterday, I do want to thank the Iowa chapter of the Sierra Club and the Iowa chapter of Physicians for Social Responsibility for sponsoring this program, and also Gateway Market for sponsoring this segment of our conversation. I know the folks who own Gateway care about our water quality as well because they live here in the community. Unlike some of the corporate heads of some of the big competitors that live elsewhere, or in the case of one particular competitor that equated Obamacare with fascism. Folks, my own personal opinion, Whole Foods is not a good place to shop at. Anyway, but Gateway Market, one of the local markets that I support, that I feel do a great job at serving the community, buying a lot of food from Iowa farms, and also serving a great menu for breakfast, lunch, and supper. Check them out, folks, at 20th and Woodland in the Sherman Hill neighborhood. That's Gateway Market and Cafe. Back in a minute.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
The dawn of a new era begins.
Well, good morning. This is the 7th of June in the Lord's year 2010, and this is day uno one of webcast1live.com. We will begin with Max World Live with my special guest, Tom Coates. In just a minute, there's Tom. Wait. Howdy. And we will be live for the very first time on Webcast One Live. Someday we're going to look back on this and say, gosh, remember that old day in history? Wonder where Walter Cronkite was. He must have been around hanging there too. But actually, it's the beginning of Webcast One Live. And thank you for listening. Thanks, Rob Spearman, and everybody who's put together this project together. And we're ready to go live now. So thanks for listening to MaxWorldLive.com.
I can't tell you that it's going real well from time to time, but it is going, man.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Hey, folks, welcome back to the conversation here on the Fallon Forum. Dan Kelly rolling into the studio as we speak. While we are waiting for Dan to get settled here, I do want to share with you Gabby Giffords' comments before the U.S. Senate. We'll go, there's a lot of, I mean, it's all over the place. It's heart-wrenching, but it's also very powerful and I think worth viewing and worth talking about. Okay, we lost the audio on that, folks. We'll try to get that back for you later. I'm not sure what happened there. Okay, Maddie will try to figure that out. But let me just point out a couple things on this issue. Again, I mentioned that we have sheriffs around the country, a handful, who are saying they're not going to enforce any gun law changes that come out of Washington. We apparently have one here in Iowa, Cedar County, Warren Wethington. He says, quote, if I signed on to a letter saying I'd refuse to enforce any unconstitutional law that violates the rights of a woman, an ethnic group, or a gay, nobody would say anything to me. It's the same thing. No, it's not the same thing. It's just, again, this really should not come down to a conversation about the Constitution. Nobody is trying to take away people's guns. Okay, I think that the goal, and I think Gabby Giffords' husband, Mark Kelly, articulated very well. And he and she are both gun owners. They're not anti-gun. They're not anti-Second Amendment. They're not anti-U.S. Constitution. They're against doing nothing in the face of so many atrocities. And again, it's happening all the time. I mean, look, 2 in today's paper, folks. 2 in today's paper. Gunman in Alabama standoff was known to threaten neighborhoods, or neighbors rather. He holed up in a bunker with a 6-year-old hostage. He took a 6-year-old hostage. I mean, it's just a miracle the kid is not dead. And he was at a standoff with law enforcement officers, not only all day but all night. And he killed a school bus driver. And again, it could have been a lot worse, but if you're the school bus driver, it's about as bad as it gets. If you're his wife or any family member, it's just, you don't have to attach lots of numbers, or get into double figures before it becomes a tragedy. And again, that's not the only one. This is from Phoenix. A gunman opened fire at an office complex in Arizona's in Phoenix yesterday, killing the CEO of a company and wounding 2 other people and setting off a manhunt. Again, both of these people were very, very clearly, not all right upstairs. Okay, something was wrong, and yet somehow they were able to acquire guns. They were able to acquire the weapons they needed to commit these atrocities. I'm sorry, the NRA is not being helpful on this issue at all. And I was happy to see a letter to the editor this morning by Dick Heimer from Sheffield up in, I believe that's Franklin County, saying, listening to leaders and spokesmen from the NRA has convinced me that the NRA not worth being a member of, he basically says. To the vast majority of sensible NRA members who do not fit the description of, Neanderthal reactionary anarchist, I say drop your membership, as I did many years ago. Pheasants Forever and Ducks Unlimited are good alternatives. All right, sounds like good advice to me. If at some point, nope, we're not. For some reason, we're having trouble with the audio on the Gifford clip, but you should Google it online. I mean, it is heart-wrenching to see a former brilliant, articulate, outspoken congresswoman who has had to work so hard just to get to the point of being able to deliver the minimal speech she was able to deliver yesterday before the U.S. Senate. Again, a lot of her concerns and suggestions articulated very passionately and I think, logically by her husband, Mark Kelly, for proposals that, again, the NRA seems to want to continue to oppose, but again, it doesn't make sense to me. We're going to move on and talk about education. Again, later in the program, we're talking about the Marriott International's efforts to ban pork and chicken consumption from confinements. But Talking education today with Dan Kelly, and I guess I want to get a lowdown of what else is happening at the State House. But Dan, welcome to the show.
Ed, it's always a pleasure to be on the show.
I see you have a very silly tie on.
I have my Kansas City Chiefs tie on.
They're not in the playoffs, are they?
Well, no, they are not in the playoffs, but this is Super Bowl weekend.
Okay.
And this is also Wear Red Day for heart health. And so I have my red pin on for that, and my favorite color red.
Okay.
Favorite shade, Kansas City Chiefs red.
All right.
So that's
congratulations on getting
the story on the tie.
Congratulations
today,
on getting the first round draft pick. Or was it Jacksonville?
Well, we're happy about the first round draft pick, Ed, but of course that means we had the worst record in the NFL.
That was implied. Yes,
I know, but I will point out that this is the first time the Chiefs have had the first round draft pick. Number one. So
we're that tie proudly.
This is the first time we've been last. So
what is your pick? What is your pick in the Super Bowl? Just curious.
I'm going to be rooting for the 49ers, and I predict the 49ers will win.
Because you're rooting for them. Without your support, they probably
no.
would not
I think Colin Kaepernick is no defense has really caught on to what he can do yet. So I think he's going to ruin Ray Lewis's retirement party.
I'll have to be with you on that one because, of course, Tom Brady is from California originally.
Right.
And the Ravens did beat the Patriots, so we're going to have to go with the 49ers over here as well.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, Ed. We'll be rooting on the 49er faithful.
Nice of us to agree on something.
Well, we agree on quite a bit of stuff, Ed.
We do. For example, education.
We've found a few things we don't agree on, but education is one of those things that we are absolutely in agreement on with when it comes to school funding.
Yeah. So the Senate again saying, snubbing the governor. The governor says you got to pass my reform proposal before you consider allowable growth.
Right.
And I understand a governor wanting to exercise some bargaining power, but you don't do that with something that is necessary. You have to, by law, you have to pass allowable growth in early February.
We can't use Iowa's kids' educations as a bargaining chip here.
That's a good point.
That's we've got to think of who we're dealing with here, and it is critical that we have the absolute best education available to Iowa's kids. It's good for them, good for our state, and good for our economy.
But your Republican colleagues in the House are going along with the governor.
Well, they have not. They've not taken steps to vote to set allowable growth. That is a fact.
And aren't they indicating a willingness to take up the governor's reform proposal first?
Well, I don't sit on the education committee this session. However, I've seen no indication from outside that committee that is the case. And I think this is just very unfortunate because there was a survey done of school superintendents recently, Ed, and I brought some stats with me.
80-something percent.
Yeah. 87% of the local the school superintendent said that if we don't set the allowable growth by March 1st, they'll have to plan for zero growth. And that's
March 1st is what, two weeks or more beyond the deadline.
That's coming up very, very quickly.
Yeah.
So if they're going to start planning for zero growth, that means they're going to be cutting their budgets because when we set zero growth, that means that we are not allowing for extra expenses such as higher gas prices. We all know gas has gone up in the last week. We have no idea what it will be by the end of March or the beginning of March. The price of food for the cafeteria, the price of supplies, the price of pay for various support staff and so forth. And missing in this whole conversation is additional support for our teachers and school staff people, because that's just a critical aspect of improving our schools. Unfortunately, that discussion got started in terms of improving teacher pay, but this school growth, allowable growth, setting that has really taken precedence in the last week or maybe 2 weeks. And so the issue of paying teachers more has kind of taken a back seat.
Yeah, I really don't.
And there's no reason for that. We can move forward.
I'm glad to see nearly 90% of superintendents saying, telling the Branstad administration that it is wrong to prioritize things this way. I'm glad to see that. I imagine that if you were to poll the general public, the support would run about the same. Maybe, probably. Because I think people agree with you. This is a power grab by the governor, in my opinion, that puts our kids at risk, that refuses to obey the law, and it just seems like a bad deal all around. And I'll actually be surprised if House Republicans go along with him entirely.
Well, again, our kids can't be a bargaining chip there,
right? And that's what they're being used as,
right? And that's unfortunate. If we do nothing and we just require our schools, just not by choice, but by the situation, requiring them to plan for 0% allowable growth. They're going to be delaying upgrades to materials. They're going to possibly be laying off teachers, classroom associates, and also many schools will be facing larger class sizes. So these are steps that we do not need to take. We're Democrats in the House are willing to sit down and get this allowable growth set, and we'd like our colleagues to come along with us, and we'd like the governor to provide some leadership in this respect.
Well, good luck in that effort, Dan, and we'll be keeping track of that. And tomorrow, folks, Tom Ahart, the interim superintendent of the Des Moines Public Schools, will be joining me.
Sure.
We're also going to be talking tomorrow, just as we're on that subject, Maureen McHugh with Physicians for Social Responsibility. We're talking about some progress being made on further cutting back on coal. And we'll also talk with Heather Ryan. Heather ran against Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell is at risk of getting a primary opponent. Heather ran, of course, as a Democrat in the general election, so it'll be interesting to get her take on that situation and some other political matters. But back to the Iowa House, Dan. Beyond education, what's happening in your chamber that's of interest to our audience?
Well, this morning we heard the State of the Guard speech from General Orr, and very interesting discussion on how children are affected by deployment and so forth, and some of the efforts that are being taken to help those kids to deal with a parent being deployed, and just found that to be the most interesting aspect of what was discussed this morning about the National Guard, how kids are affected.
And I assume they're affected badly for the most part.
Well, it's a strain on the whole family when one parent has to go to war.
Did he talk about how some National Guard troops are being deployed multiple times, 2, 3, in some cases even 4 times?
Yes, there was some mention of that. Although overall, it sounds like we have more troops at home now than we have in previous years. And he did mention that most of the Iowa National Guard who had been deployed had spent the holidays at home, and that got a standing ovation. And hopefully we have many more years like that down the road, because
this is not what the Guard was. They weren't originally intended to be used in this capacity for emergencies, but not continually being deployed.
Right, but that is the situation now, and we're very fortunate, and we should all be honored that we have people who step forward to take on those roles. He also mentioned the Guard's involvement in some efforts at home. He mentioned a 25-car pileup that had some fatalities that National Guardsmen were able to assist in, and that's an important role that the Guard fills as well.
It was more than the State Patrol could handle.
Yeah, the Guard was called in for this case, and that was very interesting to hear about.
So what are you working on? I mean, most of the focus right now is committee work.
Yeah.
There's not a lot going on the floor of the House yet.
No, we have not debated a bill at this point, and we're into week 3. I think what that shows is there's a lot of good committee work being done. Right. And bills are being drafted, and I fully anticipate in the next week or so we'll have some bills come to the floor, and we'll start debating those.
All right. So, what are you working on yourself in your committees?
Yeah. Well, I serve on the Environmental Protection Committee. We've heard quite a bit about the water nutrient pollution strategy.
We just talked about that with Ralph Rosenberg.
Yeah, being promoted by Secretary Northey and the Director of the Department of Natural Resources, Chuck Gipp. And I've done my best to educate myself on what the strategy actually would mean for farmers and communities and in terms of clean water. As we all know, clean water can't take a back seat among all these other topics that are on the table. It needs to be elevated right up to the top 1, 2, or 3 issues in the state of Iowa. And my general take on it is that we are trying to implement a voluntary program. I have no problem with taking that approach, but we've got to make it work.
But it hasn't worked. Why is it going to work now if it hasn't worked in the past?
Well, we've got to get more voluntary commitment to the project and to the steps necessary.
Don't you think we need more stick and maybe less carrot at this point?
Well, here's my point, Ed. The stick is probably coming.
Okay. If it's not our stick, it'll be the EPA's.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If we do not make this work, I think the EPA will use the stick. Right. And I don't think anybody really is looking forward to that.
Right.
So I'm willing to learn all I can about the strategy to help the farmers in my area implement them. I also want to, and I have talked to some of my local city elected officials and county elected officials, because the municipal areas, even in the rural district that I represent, they do contribute as well. This is not just a farming issue. This is a statewide issue, and urban and rural communities need to focus on keeping our water clean. And this is just as important for us in Iowa as it is in the Gulf of Mexico.
Right.
The hypoxia zone is a critical issue, must be addressed, and thankfully Iowa's taking steps towards that. So
yeah. So and again, the Senate is making some noise about taking on the climate change issue as well. Do you see any effort on the in your committee, on the Environmental Protection Committee, any interest among the Republicans who control that committee in doing anything to address climate change?
No.
Well, that's unusual to have a politician give a one-word answer, but I guess that's all. That's probably all you can say about it.
There are many members of my caucus that would like to address climate issues, but I just do not see it coming up in formal discussion within the Environmental Protection Committee. Very, very unfortunate.
Republican leadership just is not interested in that. That's too bad.
It's just not on the table. And you know, this is one of those results of the cable news propaganda going back and forth at each other every night and 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
The climate discussion has become so politicized that we're not even addressing it in the Iowa Legislative Environmental Protection Committee.
The fact that it is politicized is an embarrassment. I mean, we know we don't argue over whether the Earth is flat or round.
Well,
we don't argue over whether the sun goes around the Earth or vice versa. This is something that is so scientifically clear that there should be no debate.
And I think therein lies the problem. This is a scientific discussion, and it's being held in a polarized political context. And that is not good for anyone. We're not coming up with solutions. We're not even putting it on the table to discuss. That's one of my main frustrations in my work in the House.
Well, get back there and do what you can.
We're working at it. We got a good core team that's trying to move the issue forward.
Thank you. Well, we'll do what we can out here in the grassroots as well. Yep. Dan Kelly, folks, state representative from Newton. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Ed.
Often do on Thursdays.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity and enjoy Super Bowl Sunday.
Well, it'll be fun that we're actually rooting for the same team
for once.
Well, yeah, that's true. When it comes to baseball, we tend to be on the same side of that one.
Red Sox fans, but football.
Right. So I do want to thank Community CPA for sponsoring this segment of our show. Community CPA has been doing my taxes for years, and they do a fantastic job. Once, in fact, found a refund I was owed for previous years that amounted to a lot. It was very much appreciated. Check them out, folks. They're at 3816 Ingersoll Ave in the Ingersoll neighborhood, just west of downtown. And again, Ying Sa is the founder and owner and director of Community CPA, and she and her staff will do you right. Tell them thanks for supporting the Fallon Forum, and give them a shout there online at communitycpa.com. I'll be back in a minute, folks.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Community CPA is the 15th largest CPA firm in Iowa, providing audit, tax, and accounting services. Community CPA specializes in international tax treaty and double taxation avoidance among countries and states. 9 dedicated, experienced, hardworking staff are the company's foundation, and their compassion towards every client is the secret behind Community CPA's success. At Community CPA, you can expect quality service year-round. Call 288-3188. Community CPA, 3816 Ingersoll. Experience the difference.
I'm a burrito.
I'm a fighting burrito, full of fresh ingredients prepared before your very eyes.
I don't have eyes.
I have over 28 options and 268 million combinations, including Rizo for vegetarians.
I can take my meat off and call myself vegetarian.
Put that back on. The Fighting Burrito is locally owned right here in Ames.
I'm owned by some big corporation somewhere. Say, you want to go on a date?
No thanks. I'm seeing a quesadilla.
The Fighting Burrito in their new location at 117 Welch Avenue by Iowa State. Online fightingburrito.com. Join the fight.
This is Dr. Holding, the Story County Veterinary Clinic. For 15 years, we have been spaying and neutering feral cat groups at affordable prices. Wild cats destroy game birds and songbirds. A single female cat can produce over 4,000 kittens in 7 years. The shelters are full, so unwanted kittens will be put to sleep. Your cats will stay home and stay healthy. Call us for all your dog and cat needs at the Story County Veterinary Clinic between Ames and Nevada on Highway 30, 1 mile east of Interstate 35, 515-232-8766.
This moment of silence brought to you by Tally's Restaurant Bar and Catering, home of Des Moines' premier rooftop dining experience. Located in the heart of Beaverdale, Tally's offers speedy and affordable rooftop lunch, catering for events both large and small, innovative cuisine, as well as vegetarian and gluten-free menus. Come to Tally's for live music, dry-aged steaks, Sunday brunch, and all-you-can-eat ribs every Monday night. Tally's Restaurant Bar and Catering at 2712 Beaver Avenue. Call 279-2067. That's 279-2067.
It's time to think about upgrading the efficiency of your furnace and air conditioner. Leonard Tinker Heating and Cooling has provided honest, competent service for over 20 years. Whether it's your home or business, for repair work or to install a more energy-efficient furnace or air conditioner, call Leonard Tinker at 263-0422. That's 263-0422. For honest, competent heating and cooling service, call Leonard Tinker at 263-0422.
Nestled in the heart of downtown, Ritual Cafe is one of Des Moines' most unique places, offering a wide variety of coffee and tea. Ritual Cafe also serves the only all-vegetarian menu in town. And Ritual Cafe is a cultural hub for artists and musicians, with a performance stage hosting local, national, and international talent. Make Ritual Cafe a part of your daily ritual. On 13th Street between Locust and Grand in downtown Des Moines. And check out ritualcafe.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Max Wellman Trio, folks, bringing us back to our conversation. This segment of the show, sponsored by Story County Veterinary Clinic. Speaking of clinics, vets clinics, and animals, before I welcome Chris Peterson to the show here, I want to give you a little background. Marriott Hotel. We got a big one of them right here in Des Moines. I was not aware that Marriott also owns a bunch of other pretty fantastically large hotels. Courtyard. They own Fairfield, and they own Renaissance. Again, they operate 13 hotels just in the Des Moines area. I didn't know that either. They're big. I knew they were big. How big? Well, they're darn big. And when somebody as big as Marriott does what they just did, it sends ripples throughout the economy. They are banning the purchase of pork and eggs from suppliers that use two different animal confinement practices that are regarded as controversial. This is making Marriott the latest to prohibit the increasingly unpopular practices that are used in these confinements. Again, 13 hotels just in the Des Moines area. They've indicated that they will require all of their pork suppliers to discontinue the use of gestation crates by 2018. Okay, that's still a few years down the road. But this is significant. Now, again, they have more than 3,700 properties, Marriott does, in 74 countries and territories. That's almost 4,000 properties that serve a heck of a lot of food that are going to be making this shift. They also have indicated they will use only eggs from cage-free hens beginning in 2015. That's very close away, just a year and a half down the road. All right, 2 years down the road. It's not that far into 2013. The policies follow the company's 2011 transition to cage-free eggs at its JW Marriott locations. So, yeah, interesting. Very, very interesting. And I'm wondering, where this goes from here, what impact it will have on the industry. And welcoming to the program today, Chris Peterson with the Iowa Farmers Union. Chris, welcome to the Fallon Forum. I believe you are on the phone with us from somewhere up by Cedar Lake. Clear Lake, rather.
Yep. Sure am. And, it's cold. It's cold up here, too.
I hope you're indoors right now.
Yeah, it's just as cold in Minnesota, too. That's where I'm at today.
Oh, you're in Minnesota?
Yeah.
Gosh.
I totally appreciate what Marriott has done here, and I say that as an independent livestock producer.
Right, and you've raised hogs for a long time.
Yeah, ever since I was a kid.
Right.
And I just want the audience to know my Berkshires are bedded and comfortable today, even though it's as cold as it is. It's called animal husbandry, and dependent family farmers know how to raise.
So your Berkshires aren't raised in confinements. They're in what, hoop houses or?
Yeah, they're not in hoop houses. They're just deep bedded and open front buildings.
Okay.
That time of
Yeah. Yeah, and people, if they're cared for properly with some protection from the wind and some space where they can warm it up a little bit, and again with the deep bedding, they'll be okay. So again, you're doing that more. More people are trying to do that, but the trend has been away from that into these massive confinements owned by big corporations that are producing animals that many people have concerns about in terms of not just the environmental impact, but the on the animal itself. And I don't know what all went into Marriott's decision. Maybe you do, and if you do, share that with us. But at any rate, it's a significant development that I think is going to have a lot of impact on the industry. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. You got the industry, and then you got the family farms, the ones that are left anyway. And the industry wants to do it in their mind the most efficient, cheapest way they can. And sometimes that's not the best animal husbandry or animal welfare. It's not the best for food safety, food security. There's a bunch of things that you can talk about, and it's controversial.
Now, how many other corporations, and maybe you don't know the answer to this, but if you do, how many other significantly large corporations have made the same shift, or are making the same shift that Marriott is making?
Well, this ongoing movement, just about every month or twice a month, you read where somebody else has done this as far as restaurants or whatever. And I will say I appreciate the Humane Society of the United States for pushing this.
Now, you don't hear too many farmers say they appreciate the Humane Society, so that's good to know. Tell us why. What have they done that's been helpful here?
Well, they're pushing this, with their consumer people who belong to them across the country, and they're an animal welfare group. They're not a animal rights group, as some people think.
Yeah, some people do try to brand them as extremists who want to make us all into vegetarians. That's not a fair characterization, though.
No, absolutely not. I appreciate what they're doing and read up on them and been around them off and on, and they know basically everybody eats meat and then this and that, and they just want better care for the animals.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's it makes a lot of sense, and again, I think it's gonna. I mean, apparently and again, usually when a company makes a decision like this, when you've got this is a huge corporation with what 4,000 properties around the world in 74 countries. usually they're driven by some kind of financial decision. If they can get their pork or egg products for a few pennies less, they'd be inclined to get them from a confinement. But either the price issue is not as much of a concern anymore, or the public relations problems caused by continuing to use pork raised in these crates. Maybe that's enough of a problem that they're willing to make the shift. What do you think? It's financial, or is it is it public impressions there's the public pressure?
Well, what I think is going on with a lot of the other restaurants and hotels that have done this, there's public pressure here. People are starting to get smart on food, what they eat, where it comes from, how it's raised.
Mm-hmm.
And, the other side of this, which needs to be mentioned, there'll be huge economic impacts. And by that, I mean, there's starting to be a slice carved out for independent family farmers in a sustainable way that want to stay farming and raise animals and get their children involved, whatever. It's the right thing to do.
Do you think we're going to get to the point sometime soon where products raised sustainably, as you're doing with hogs, and across the board, whether it's meat, dairy, vegetables, fruits? I mean, right now, when you buy those products from a local source, you often pay more than you would if you bought it raised in some large scale farm, either in this state or in California or somewhere else. Do you see us getting to the point anytime soon where there is parity, there's equity in terms of the price for stuff raised locally and sustainably versus in confinements and on industrial farms?
Yeah, I see it. Parity is getting better and better, and my thought as a consumer, as well as I do, you get what you pay for.
Right.
Usually better stuff costs a little more. And industrialized food, the argument's been going on for years. What is the true cost of that food when you figure in all the economic, health, political, environmental, all the impacts? What is the true cost of that food? Nobody can really tell you these days.
Right.
And
yeah, because you're right. So many of the costs are passed along to the consumer one way or the other.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Marriott chain here, that's the big broad picture. But when consumers buy local or regional or from smaller companies, they can put a face on their food. They can put a face on that farmer. They can put a face on how it was raised. You can put a face on the animal. The pig or the cow or the chicken. How it's being treated before we utilize the product.
Well, great, Chris. I appreciate you joining us. One last question, if you're able to answer it. There has been increased momentum nationally to label products that are genetically modified. It looked like it was going to pass in California in a referendum there, and then huge amounts of money from Monsanto and a handful of other big corporations defeated it. But there are efforts here in Iowa to move something like that forward. Of course, we can't do it through the referendum process, but do you see momentum on the GMO labeling issue picking up? And again, as a farmer, do you think that's a good thing?
I think it's absolutely a good thing. And the reason I say that, everything else that we buy, like our clothes or our underwear or you name it, it's labeled.
Well, that's a good point. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You think if just wearing something, it's important to label something you just wear. It certainly would be important to label something you eat.
Oh yeah, you put the food inside of you. Yeah. It has large impact.
Well, I mean, maybe they would argue that, well, we do list the ingredients. We don't need to list all the details about how those ingredients were produced, though. That's probably one of the arguments you might hear from Monsanto, for example. So
again, Monsanto's a huge international conglomerate, and they're in it to make money, and that's their prime directive, so to speak. Now, you talk from the consumer point of view, I like to know what I eat for health reasons, for financial reasons, whatever.
Right. Yeah. Well, Chris, we'll have to keep this conversation going. I appreciate you joining us. And if you are in Des Moines sometime, if you're down at the state capitol lobbying, I know you get down here once in a while, feel free to give us a shout. We'd love to have you in the studio here.
Okay.
And again, good luck. And thanks to the group you work with, the Iowa Farmers Union. They do some great work, and we appreciate having their presence here in the state of Iowa.
Okay. Thank you very much. Stay warm.
Good luck. Yeah, folks, I want to thank you for sticking around for the conversation. And I want to thank Story County Veterinary Clinic for sponsoring this segment of the show very appropriately. Again, Story County Vet Clinic, run by Kim Holding, who's been in the business for a long, long time, and does mostly small animals. Kim, though, is very well qualified to work on larger animals as well. But again, you can check out more about the clinic on their website, or on my website even. And also check out their clinic in person on Highway 30, just east of Ames. Just east of Ames on Highway 30 between Ames and Nevada. That's Story County Veterinary Clinic. Thank you so much for sticking around. Bradshaw will be with you next. Bradshaw's coming on at 1:30. I want to thank Maddie Arrington, my producer. I want to thank Webcast One Live for providing the studio. I want to encourage you to go to my website and sign up for my electronic updates. I send out one a week. I will never, ever, ever be a bad guy and inundate you. I do not like spam. I will not spam you. I will once a week tell you what's going to be on this show. And what is going to be on the show? Well, tomorrow, again, Tom Ahart, he's the interim superintendent of the Des Moines Public Schools. He's going to be joining us for a conversation about, well, I want to get his take on allowable growth too, but there is a bit of a controversy, or maybe it's a non-controversy in the Des Moines Register this morning, regarding money appropriated for hiring teachers that has not been spent. And again, it seems to me that it's really not a controversy. It seems to be this is an example of trying to make news where none exists. But I want to talk with Tom about that and get his take on it. We'll also tomorrow talk with Maureen McHugh with Physicians for Social Responsibility about some positive developments on the on controls around the issue of coal. And Heather Ryan, one of my favorite political pals, is going to join us. We'll talk about Mitch McConnell's woes on the Republican side. She actually ran against the guy. But we'll talk about the Harkin fallout and a few other things politically speaking as well. All right, so be sure you go to my Facebook page, click like, and be sure if you are in the Ames area that you tune into the Fallon Forum on Wednesdays at 4 o'clock on KHOI 89.1 FM. Be back with you tomorrow, folks.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershot.
I'm administrative manager.
I'm the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the